Hi guys, I'm Kristen. Welcome and welcome back. Today it is time to do the mid-year book freakout tag. So I am filming this a little bit in advance. I will maybe finish one more book by the end of the year, or by the end of June. I do enjoy doing this tag. It is always really interesting to reflect back. Not all of the questions, at least of the version that I have, that make sense to me in my reading. So sometimes I do exchange out, and I actually encourage you to do the same. So let's jump into it. Starting right into it with the first question, the best book that you've read so far this year. So I think in my Q1 wrap up, I listed The Curse of Chalian by Lois McMaster-Bujold as the best book that I had read so far up to that point. Since then, I looked back to see what other books have I rated really high. I am intermittently keeping track of ratings. So since the end of March, I have read only one 5-star, and that was Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. So technically, I think that that's probably the best book that I've read so far this year. But just to give you some other fantasy and sci-fi books as well, I also had two books that I rated in the moment as a 4.75, and that included Jade Legacy by Fonda Lee, the conclusion of the Greenbone saga, which I absolutely love. And I think I said when I was doing my wrap up that I couldn't really remember, looking back, why I hadn't given it a 5. I do remember there was it wasn't totally the perfect book for me, and so I didn't give it a 5, but we're splitting hairs at that point. I also gave Age of War, book 3 in the Legends of the First Empire, a 4.75 as well. That one really came to a head with some of the conflict that was happening. I think it had amazing character moments. It had fist pumping moments, sorry. And it also had really devastating, totally caught me off guard, shocking and upsetting and distressing moments as well. Not the best book of the year, obviously, but a smattering of the best books so far this year would definitely include The Curse of Chalian from the first quarter of the year, Age of War, Jade Legacy, and Just for the Summer. Question number 2 is the best sequel that you've read so far in 2024, and I am going to stick with the Legends of the First Empire here, and either Age of War, which I already included, but also book number 2, Age of Swords, I really liked. It was not necessarily a step up from the first book that I read last year, Age of Myth, but it was a sequel that lived up to my excitement for continuing on in a series that was a priority for me to continue reading on in. So I absolutely loved Age of Swords as well. Again, it had some great exciting fist pumping moments. I think that's a series for me, is the highs and lows of being so excited for what a character just pulled off that you're yeah, in the moment, but also then devastated when other things happen. Question number 3 is a new release from the first half of the year that you haven't read yet but still want to. So I am having a tough new release year in terms of getting access to the books that I have my eye on that I really like to. So there are still definitely a few, one of which of course is The Trials of Empire by Richard Swan. This is the third and final book in the Empire of the Wolf series, which was the Justice of Kings. I really was looking forward to that book. My library even has a copy of the first book and the second book, and for whatever reason, despite the fact this book came out in February, they still haven't gotten a copy. The reception for it has been a little bit muted. I think some people it really worked for, and some people it went in a direction that wasn't their favorite element of the story. And in this one, we're following, again, she's an apprentice to a justice of the land who is judge, jury, executioner, detective, all of the things wrapped up in one. Another series that had another book released this year was The Books of the Usurper. I'm remembering series names, that's nice. And this is Relics of Ruin. And this is the sequel to Empire of Exiles, which I recently talked about in my underhyped books I wish more people were talking about. So check out this series, check out that video. I will link it up as well if you'd like to have a look at that. And this book was originally following a scribe who finds himself thrown into a little bit of a conspiracy as part of this murder mystery when murders start happening that are adjacently connected to him in the city that are also connected to a attempted coup that took place 15 or 20 years ago. Without saying where I think this series is going, I will just say that I am really excited to learn more about this world. It is in an enclosed, protected city where a lot of different countries and peoples came to be protected by like an external threat. So I am really looking forward to continue on in this series. I hope that as it goes on, I continue to get more descriptions and more information that help me feel like a little bit more rooted in the world. But again, my library does not have a copy. Another new release that is not attached to any existing series that I'm already reading that I haven't been able to get a copy of yet is A Letter to the Luminous Deep. I am actually on hold for, I think, the audiobook. And this is I'm a little bit upset about that because this is an epistolary, I can never know if I'm saying that word right, novel where we are reading the book through, I think, 2 sets of correspondence. Now, I think audiobook can be really good for that if it uses like unique voices for each of the different letters, but at the same time, sometimes letters are also really nice to read themselves. And this one has to do with 2 people who I think are neurodivergent, from what I've heard, who are corresponding about their love for like the depths of the sea, one of which, maybe both, actually live in water under the sea, I guess is how you would say that. And then something happens to them and they both go missing. And there's another set of correspondence between their irrespective brother and sister trying to figure out what happened to them. And I think it's a love story. Perhaps it's 2 love stories, I'm not sure. But I do really want to read this. So I am on hold for the library. I just have to wait a little bit longer, I think. Most anticipated books now for the second half of the year. I have not done all of my research, obviously, like stuff that comes out in the latter half of the year is announced maybe a little bit later on for some or a lot of things. So I haven't done all of that research yet. So just the ones that I know about that already had kind of like set dates going into this year. In July, The Sky is on, or just, I think it's just The Sky on Fire is how I read it. It might be The Sky is on Fire by Jen Lyons, the author of the Course of the Dragons series, a Course of Dragons series that I absolutely love. I cannot wait to see what else Jen Lyons is going to do with a new fantasy world. From what I hear, this is like dragons and heist, but I honestly haven't even looked up the premise in a really long time. I just saw Jen Lyons has another book. Perfect. Writing that down, put the date in my calendar, and that's where we're at with that book. The conclusion to the Gale Song is also coming out in September, and that is The Land of the Living and the Dead. This is by Shauna Lawless, and this is the series following, it's set in Ireland with both Irish kings from the time as well as Viking kings, and we're following 2 women who represent different mythological beings from Ireland, and kind of the endless war between the 2. But I am really, really interested to see what Shauna Lawless does with this conclusion. I am very nervous, but very excited. She also released a prequel existing in this world following a different, a side character. Maybe I will try to read it before I pick up The Land of the Living and the Dead. Maybe I'll read it back to back to really get me back into that world again. And then another one, which is the date I didn't write down, here is A Sorceress Comes to Call by T. Kingfisher. And the only thing that I know about this is that it's by T. Kingfisher and it's a Goose Girl retelling. So you know that I will be checking that out. I really can't wait to see what T. Kingfisher does with that particular retelling. Question number 5 is the biggest disappointment so far of this year. I'm going to give you 3 books that I was to some extent disappointed in. Age of Legends, to throw the Legends of the First Empire on this list again. This was book number 4, and it was the first book in the series where I kind of thought, that's it? That's all we're doing in this one? So that was a little bit disappointing. It did not quite live up to the love that the first 3 books gave me. And it was definitely a lot of setup for what's going to happen, and I think what's going to be really cool in the next couple books as things shake out. And yeah, as the series concludes in this 6-book series. But yeah, that one was a little bit disappointing in the amount of content that we covered that didn't quite meet the high standards I had come to expect in this series. I was also a little bit disappointed in Not in Love by Ali Hazelwood. Not that there's no stakes in the game for me on that in general, like on contemporary romance books. It was more just that I thought I would really love it, and it really was a fair bit of a miss for me. It was just the characters both like really being a little bit thinky in their heads, just like constantly. The sexual tension, despite these two characters having like really extreme, world-shattering, can't avoid chemistry, I didn't actually get that at all. So it just didn't work for me. It didn't land, unfortunately. And then again, another one where like no stakes in the game really for it, but I was also a little bit disappointed in Swordcatcher, just because I feel like it was one that I hadn't picked up for reasons in 2023, and then I kind of convinced myself to read it based on like still hearing about it from people's content from last year, and not feeling that it provided me with the amount of drama, I guess, that I was expecting, especially with the potential relationships. Definitely towards the second half of the book, the politics got really interesting, but overall that book was not, it didn't quite catch me and sweep me off my feet in a way that I was expecting by the time that I picked it up. So that, I guess, like a little bit of personal expectations of like having put something off and then thought, you know what, no, I will really like this, and then having it just be really kind of okay. Biggest surprise, I'm going to do 12 Kings in Sherikai, which I read in the first quarter of the year and absolutely loved. And I think I thought I was giving this a shot, and based on what I had heard, I wasn't sure if I actually even was really going to like it. I had heard it was like a little bit descriptive heavy and a little bit slow moving, and that people didn't feel invested in the characters. So despite all that, I picked it up anyway, and I absolutely loved it. I don't even think that those are the common critiques. Didn't feel invested in the characters like to care, and that it was a little bit descriptive and wordy. And I like kind of disagree with both of them. I was like very invested in the characters, and I didn't find it was that overly descriptive. So I really enjoyed this. This is a desert fantasy book where we're following a main character who kind of has a secret identity within her city, where she's like this like secret gladiator kind of person, and she ends up witnessing something on a religious night where everyone's supposed to stay in and they're not supposed to be out, and she ends up seeing something that she shouldn't, not necessarily that she shouldn't, but that piques her interest into start asking some harder, deeper questions about the belief system with these 12 immortal kings that run and rule their city. Really loved it. Can't wait to keep reading on in this series. I definitely will pick up the second book at some point in the second half of this year. Question number 7 is favorite new author. This can be either a debut author that you picked up or a new to you author. I'm going to go with 2 here. I'm going to give you one of each. So a new to me author was Lois McMaster Bujold that wrote The Curse of the Chalian. And this one, why I picked this particular author, because I've only read the one book by them so far this year. It's not like a repeat author that I've already continued reading on with, but it not only made me want to keep reading like other books in this world that she's written, but it also really made me want to check out her sci-fi as well. So Angela from the channel Literature Science Alliance has been reading the Verkorsigan, I'm not quite sure of the pronunciation there, saga, which is again like a big comprehensive world with apparently multiple entry points. Reading The Curse of Chalian made me want to give Verkorsigan saga a check out for sure. I just think that The Curse of Chalian was so well written, so cleanly written. You care so much in such a short amount of time about the characters involved, on top of very good world building that was like no more than you needed, which could be good for me in a sci-fi setting as well. So yeah, I'm looking forward to trying out her sci-fi as well. And then for a debut author that I've just tried, that was Bethany Jacobs. I just finished recently These Burning Stars, which is another one of my 2023 new release pickups for this year. And wow, like very well written debut book. It's another sci-fi as well that like I don't even care that we were, I guess, traveling to different like planets and stuff. As to say, the sci-fi elements didn't overwhelm me, and it was much more about the characters, but a really cool cat and mouse chase spanning decades, almost happening on 2 timelines. Not really, but like you're seeing then and now, and it's sort of 2 different cat and mouse chases, and it's just so good. Like the characters involved make you really interested. Very cool, well-written characters. Newest fictional crush, question number 8, is a really funny question to watch in other people's videos, because you have people who are like, oh yes, it's obviously this person. And then you also have people who are like, no, they're fictional. I don't get crushes. What are you talking about? I don't know. People just struggle with it every year and they don't know how to answer it. I'm going to go, sometimes I have crushes on love interest in books, and sometimes I don't, or like not really like just on characters, but sometimes it's like a love interest. I'm like, oh yeah, I could see myself falling for this person for sure, for sure. And that's how I generally approach it, is like, what's my favorite new love interest from a book that I read? And I think I have to go with, I think his name was Justin from Just for the Summer. Not that he was like actually my type, but in the way that he won over our main character, I too was won over for him. Like, it was just like a really charming but very real guy to read from. The way that he would like do these like cute little surveys. Oh, the not plushy, the beach blow up unicorn scene. Like, come on, how do you not fall for Justin with that? Number 9 is favorite new character. And I have to go with Laszlo Strange. How do you not? If you read Strange the Dreamer in a section of the year that you're being asked about, you have to go with Laszlo Strange. He's just the purest gold main character who, in such a short amount of time, makes you want, I don't know, not want to be him, not want to be with him, but like want to do anything for him. Just because he's just such a pure gold person. I can't say pure gold again, but he's just so pure and delightful and so hopeful and optimistic and so curious, and like what he does without thinking, just because he's nice and like a kind person, a kind-hearted, well-intentioned person. Question number 10 is a book that made you cry. Every time I like move my head down, like turn my head down to like look at my notes and then come up, it like changes the lighting, so I'm so sorry for that. A book that made you cry, definitely Jade Legacy. I wasn't like sobbing or bawling my eyes out, I don't think, but I was tearing up. I was emotional reading that book in a couple different places. Oh, and Strange the Dreamer. I don't think I was outright bawling, but I was so shocked, almost shocked to tears, like on the verge of tears when a certain reveal happened. Then we also have question number 11, a book that made you happy. I'm going to go with Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands. I just enjoy it. These aren't like the greatest thing I've ever read, in that they don't stay with me, they don't linger. They're not my new favorite books ever. I think they're really, really great, enjoyable books. I love the scholarly element. I love that the woman in the book is the curmudgeonly character and it's the male lead who's like the sunshine. I just had a great time reading it. It didn't have like kind of the absurd fae element that I didn't love in the second book or in the first book. So I just kind of generally liked the whole of this book. As outrageous as it was, the inclusion of the niece was really funny. Like every time Emily thought about the niece and said anything to the niece, I was just like laughing. It feels mean to say, but I thought it was really funny. The little return to page fae person from the last book and like the thing that he had given her and what that meant. Yeah, it's just a book that makes you really happy for sure was that book. Question number 12 is traditionally favorite book to film adaptation that you've seen this year. I don't watch so many adaptions that this question ever really feels relevant for me. Last year I subbed it in for favorite new fantasy world. That question I also don't really feel like fits for me this year, so I think what I was going to exchange it for is favorite new TV series that I have been watching. So in the first half of this year, my partner and I have tried out a couple new TV shows, and right now we are working our way through Killing Eve and really, really enjoying it. So I'm gonna go with Killing Eve for my favorite like new TV series. I mean, I generally love a good sociopathic character, in that I just find them really outrageous and so interesting, and that's why Dark Apprentice last year was like just like a little bit disappointing, because he was just really frustrating, whereas like Eve is not only a sociopath but also like bonkers. But I'm having a really enjoyable time with it, as much as you can say that about a show that's about a hitman who's a lunatic. Question number 13 is favorite new video that you've made this year. I don't really feel like this fits for me again this year. So far this year has been more a personal reading diary than it has been me like pushing the boundaries of creativity. I am hoping, I have ideas, there are things that I want to do, but Some of them take a little bit more time. I have to like reread certain series. I have to like take more notes and plan things out. And that's great. That's like the whole point of this generally, but that just takes a little bit more time than I have right at this moment. So hopefully I'll be able to do more thoughtful, helpful content like that moving forward in the second half of this year. But so far, just like, again, it's been a little bit more of a reading diary, and thank you for sticking around for that. Question number 14 is the most beautiful book that you have bought or received this year. You guys know that I don't really buy or receive any books. I have not bought any single book so far or received any book this year as of yet. Usually then I go with favorite book or most beautiful book that I've read, and I'm kind of drawing a blank. I didn't prepare this one ahead of time. Okay, I'm gonna go with The Tainted Cup, but not this version, which I think, if I'm remembering correctly, is the US version. I think that this cover is just like absolutely gorgeous. So I'm gonna go with that one. And then the final question on the version that I have is, what are some books that you need to read or need to finish by the end of the year? So I do have a priority list that I have been reading from this year containing 24 books. So I'm going to guide you back to my 24 books to read in 2024 priorities list in terms of the books that I need to finish by the end of the year. I might do an update, so you can stay tuned for that potential video as well. But just looking here, I might like list off what are some highlights from that. So obviously The Grace of Kings, like I already started in this first half of the year and didn't finish. So again, I would like to read that by the end of next year. I actually was looking at my video from last year, and I used Grace of Kings last year for this question as well. So I have to read, I don't have to. It is one of my priorities for the year. I have tried it. It didn't work out in the moment. I'm going to try it again. Legacy of the Brightwash, it's in the other room, but I have a physical copy. I actually like went out of my way. It was the only book I got for Christmas this year, because that was like basically the only book that I asked for Christmas or a physical copy of. So I am very excited to finally get to Legacy of the Brightwash. I also, oh my gosh, you guys, I never finished The Liar's Knot. Not The Liar's Knot, The Labyrinth's Heart. It bothers me that that book doesn't start with the. I had never finished Labyrinth's Heart because I got my physical copy like basically right after I had given birth, and it just like was not happening to read a physical book. What I'm wondering is if I need to like reread all of them again to like really get myself back into that world to feel that level of excitement for it. I'll see if I can get the audio copies for the first two books, The Mask of Mirror and The Liar's Knot, and then if that happens, fortunately, or hopefully, I'll be able to roll myself into Labyrinth's Heart as well. What else? Is there anything else here that is like screaming? Oh, and First Law. The Blade itself. I am actually getting close to having a physical copy, or not a physical. I'm actually getting close for having access to a library copy. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, I have been on hold at my library for The Blade itself since January of 2023. Over a year. I've been on hold for that book for over a year and a half now, or like essentially a year and a half now, and it is finally coming. Like I'm still like several weeks away. Like I think like in the 8 to 12 maybe week time frame here, but I'm at like, this is actually gonna happen, which is just, yeah, so crazy. So I'm very excited, and it is one of my priority reads for this year. It's a priority new series start. Last minute thoughts, wrapping up here, my mid-year freakout tag 2024 is that no standout, no like huge mind-boggling, life-changing favorites this year. I am enjoying the books that I'm reading for the most part. I feel like it's more of a personal, I'm not in the right headspace to like really sink in and connect with the books. I'm wondering if the style of reading that I typically do might have to change, which would mean that I would read less, but I'm wondering if I have to read a little bit more carefully. And I don't mean like picking up the books. I'm doing a good job of that, but I wonder if I have to like sit down more and just read. So like maybe like an hour in the morning, an hour before bed. I'm certainly not disappointed with my reading this year. I'm just like reflecting back on like 2019 and 2020 when so many of those books I was like so in love with that I wanted to pick them up and reread them again right after having finished them. Even when I, read Mask of Mirrors for the first time or A Course of Dragons series, like those books just caught my mind in such a different way that I'm not currently experiencing with most of what I'm reading. Something to think about. moving forward in a way that makes me feel more connected to what I'm reading. And maybe that means reading less. I don't know. All right, well, that is the first half of the year for me so far. Some highs, some lows, some thoughts regarding the second half of the year. Let me know any question, pick any of the 15 questions that were in this tag and answer them down below. If you have a channel as well and you're doing this video, or if you have a channel, do this video. It's a great, easy video to make, and let me know that you have done it in the comments down below, and I will check out your first half of the year as well. I'll see you guys next time. Have a great day. Bye.